at the end of the day, the products, the services that we provide, none of that matters. It really doesn't. What we're here on this planet to do is to have experiences with one another. And if you walk through life with blinders on, you're not going to have a fulfilling life.
This is the Square One Show. So Dave and I met Kevin when we were diving into producing videos, and we had lots of questions specifically about this new camera that we bought. So I had read an article about this specific camera and then reached out to the author, who then invited us to chat via Skype. So we hit it off right away, and I could tell Kevin had such a kind and giving heart, spending time with two novices, sharing his advice and encouragement. So we'd love to introduce to you today Kevin Luiz, a cinematographer and owner of Capion Studio based in Massachusetts. His authentic approach to creative media and working with clients is inspiring. We hope you enjoy his story.
Hey, Jess, what's going on?
Hey, how are you, Kevin?
All right, just enjoying this cloudy, rainy day here in Massachusetts.
Oh, man,
Pretty
it's
bad.
usually cloudy here in Northwest Pennsylvania, but...
Cool.
Yeah.
So what's new? What's going on?
Oh, well, Dave's here with us too.
How's it going, Kevin?
Hey, Dave. Good.
Good.
How you been?
Pretty good. Hanging in there. So your company, it's Capion. Is that how you pronounce it?
Capion.
Capion.
Kind of. I guess there's no little.
It's not French.
Above the
Right.
It's not French.
Nice.
No, and actually, what's funny is I was thinking about that. I was like, I knew you were going to ask that question. So yes, it's pronounced Capion.
Okay, Capion.
And
Studio.
I was trying to go back and think about where that name was originally derived from. Kind of a word meld. When I was thinking about it, I was like, back then when I was shooting for fun, when I formed my company back 2012, I was shooting a lot of 35 millimeter on my Pentax. And I think I was, if my memory serves me correct, I was doing kind of like a word puzzle, and it was capture image on negative. And that's where that was derived from.
Okay.
Image on negative.
And that negative being negative film. And
Right.
that's kind of where that was originated from. And I was like, people ask me that all the time. And yeah, that's where that comes from. Also, I think I was like reading space books at the time, which I was looking at ions.
Yep.
And then I'm pretty sure I was playing like Capcom video games, which is also another thing. I'm like, all these things combined, it was kind of a neat little word meld.
And
That's where that.
this week is like your anniversary, isn't it? Wasn't it like beginning of October I saw on your website?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
wow.
So thank you. Yeah, it's been long in coming. I think that's really kind of what I'd like to focus talking about. Is it's so difficult to be an entrepreneur, but to stand on your own 2 feet and be able to support yourself with a business. Because I feel like everybody wants to be in this business of creating content, shooting and filming. There's something like attracting. There's something really appealing about being able to shoot video content, and there's video content creators are a dime a dozen. So to be able to be successful and be in business for this long, and it's kind of a testament. So it's just, I forget sometimes, and I stand back and I say, wow, like I'm actually able to put food on the table. And I just purchased my first house.
Wow.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Me and Christina is my girlfriend. We bought our first house it's called the Highlands. It's in Fall River, which I'm sure Fall River is getting terrible news locally right now.
Oh, no.
Our mayor is on like extortion charges or something crazy. But so not the best city, but the best area in that city.
The best
so
house.
we got like this. It's kind of like if Chip and Joanna Gaines saw this house, they just fall in love immediately.
Nice.
It's like a colonial house, 3-bedroom. It's on a nice quiet street. It's great.
You're living the dream up there.
Yeah.
This is Massachusetts. Is it close to Boston, or where are you at in Massachusetts?
So I live in southeastern Massachusetts.
Okay.
So like if you, I always describe it, if you imagine like the arm of Massachusetts, we're like in the armpit.
Okay.
Nice.
That's a great way to describe
It's like
your town.
the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Your town's
right?
getting better
We're
by
in
the moment.
Just put some deodorant on, you'll be good.
Yeah, no, it's so it's so beautiful. It really is. If you ever have the opportunity to come up to Massachusetts, because it's all coastal, we get killer sunsets. The beach is maybe like 10 minutes from us. So,
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a good spot. But you're in an area
Yeah.
that there is a lot more competition too, I would imagine. So the fact that you're
So
successful.
that's a really good question, Dave. Is yes and no.
Okay.
So actually, I was just having a debate, or not a debate, I guess like a conversation with somebody online on a recent RedShark article. I don't know if you took the opportunity to read that.
Yeah.
We did.
Did you happen to see the comments down below?
No, I'm going to bring
on
it up
that?
right now.
Okay, sure. So there was a gentleman, I think he ended up revealing that he was from Brooklyn, New York. And he was kind of going into this whole automation giant is killing our industry and there's not enough work. And I know all these digital agencies that basically have closed shop in the past, 2-3 years. And I'm just having this conversation with him about what are you doing for a service, number one. Number two, how are you separating yourself from the competition? And how are you maintaining your clients and validating your service? And a lot of those things I don't necessarily think he could answer. He was kind of just pointing back towards like Magisto and 90 Seconds, which are these websites that take your video content and through artificial intelligence cut all of your material. And I think there's like unlimited edits, and basically they slap together a cookie cutter job cut for you. And then I think that they actually do the campaign distribution and they put it out to market. So we were having this conversation, and this article is not just a correction. This conversation was on how to optimize your website.
Okay.
And so he started to reveal to me basically that he was in Brooklyn, New York. And at that point I said, you need to get outside of your comfort zone, for one. And two, you need to get outside of your geographical location. Because if you are relying on lead gen through your geographical location, you're never going to get work. You're never going to survive. So that brings me back to your question, Dave, is that like, what is going on in my market? Honestly, we formed Capion. It was myself and my good friend Gary Medeiros, and my father Joe was actually part of the operations for Ariel. We formed Capion because we identified that media is very weak, actually, in southeastern Massachusetts. It is, I don't want to say it's non-existent. Some companies are starting to come on board with it, but it's just not a strong suit. It's very underdeveloped. So really, I've never, in the 7 years I've been in business, I've never lost a job to a competitor. I've never been like, had the rug pulled out from underneath me. And I think I've lost, I always have like one-off clients. But the clients that I've maintained over the years have always been there, and they keep coming back to the table because this is the mantra or the idea that they're not clients at a certain point, they're partners. And it's really about providing them tools that not only that they can use, teaching them ways that they can use it in different ways and helping them leverage that content in ways that they might have not thought to use before. It's a whole package that we kind of put together and sell them on now. But yeah, to your direct question is, no, the competition isn't really tight here. If you go up towards Boston, absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
If you go to Providence, a little bit. But where I'm right now, I think that there's maybe like 3 or 4 competitors, and they're not really doing what we're doing in a way.
Right. I'm just looking at your website now. So you're doing consulting and pre-production, the actual video production, and then all the post-production. And it sounds like you really focus on storytelling too. Can you go into that a little bit and tell us why you feel like the importance of storytelling needs to be there?
Yeah, storytelling is huge. I did a seminar with my local chamber of commerce, and I said to them in that class, and they were just kind of throwing everything at the wall. I said to them, you're not a brick and mortar store, or you're not a brick and mortar company. You're a company of people, and your people make you an actual entity and why people want to continue to do business with you. So storytelling is a huge element of that, is not being afraid to put your representatives on camera to get that authentic story, that authentic vibe, their culture behind who you are. And that's done through very pointed questions. There's a little bit of a discovery period in consultation. And usually what I'll do is I'll spend some time with the company and I'll learn about them, what they do, tour the facility, tour the actual offices, talk to people, learn who they are. Then we do the interview process. But storytelling element is essentially bringing all of these casts of characters together who are the employees of these institutions or these organizations, and then handshaking down the line. So every story is different. One time I could be doing a piece on a student who's gone off to college and coming back and reminiscing about his high school. Or the next day I could be filming with a nonprofit about their impact on the community and how they're making a difference, as well as bolstering who they are as a corporation or a nonprofit, and using that storytelling element to increase recruitment. So story is a huge thing. I mean, that has a lot to do with like the discovery period, though, is like a lot of pointed questions just in initial consultation about who they are and what they do and who they service. And then from there, what we'll do is we'll create a series of questions. We'll kind of volley that back and forth between my team and their own, and then we'll do the interview process. But I think a lot of our work, if you look at it, a lot of our work is authentic interviewing, as opposed to like doing like casting and getting paid actors or anything like that. I've done a couple of that stuff, but the type of work that we do is actual like employees.
Yeah, I would imagine it's a little bit tougher. We've done some video stuff too, and in certain areas, if they're not actors, it's pretty tough to get them to act authentically or to have
feel
that
comfortable
come
on the
across.
camera.
I was going to ask like how you actually tell those stories well when you're not dealing with professional actors or people that maybe can't even take direction very well. So you kind of said that you use more interview process.
Yeah, that's such a good question. Well, first off, like I feel positivity has to come. You have to be a positive person if you're going to be directing. I've been in rooms where there's directors who are just kind of like negative and they don't have a glow to them. Like you have to be like an upbeat, positive person, down to earth. And I think that in myself like comes forward is like I disarm people. And if they get nervous about a camera, I'll just stop it, or I'll pretend to stop, and I'll just say to them, listen, like this is just a piece of plastic with like some glass and some electronics. It's me and you. Don't even pay attention to this. Ignore it. It's just plastic. We're just having a conversation, and 9 out of 10 times it usually works. And what I'll do is I won't even stop recording, and they'll think that like they're like, oh, like we're just. I'll say I'll stop. And then that's when I get the gold, is usually when somebody is like disarmed like that. Right. And that's really it. It's like just like that interpersonal skill to be able to like just get on somebody's level and understand that they might have some difficulty with this and that it's okay. Like it's okay to be nervous and just take a moment to reflect and just have a casual conversation. Kind of like what we're doing right now.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
If I were to think about this, if I was to think about this being a podcast, I'd probably be like super nervous, but it's just, right. I know you guys, like I've talked to you in the past. Right. It's just a conversation. That's all it is.
It's okay.
We're not intimidating.
Nobody's listening anyway. That's okay.
Yeah, right?
Don't say that.
No, we have amazing listeners. We do hear from them. So,
but I think that is huge.
That's good.
I know there's a lot of people that have great technical skills and they understand how the stuff works, but the final product doesn't always reflect that because, like you're saying, they don't have that personal connection with people that allows those people to feel have a level of comfortability, which lowers their guard and allows them to trust you. So I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Is that something that you just...
The other thing, Dave?
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, my question, you can go back to Dave here in a second. My question is, how did you learn that? Does it come naturally to some people, or is it something you can learn?
That's a really good question. So this is going to sound funny, but I'm actually the son of a therapist.
Perfect. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Right?
So I've been my whole life I've been pretty much in therapy, right? So no, I mean it's just being like a good listener and being empathic, and I'm an extremely perceptive person. I can read body language. I can read eye movement. I can read it all. And I can read subtext of language when people are talking, and nothing really slips by me. So I think that also has to do with it, but turning that filter off sometimes is really difficult for me. Is I think being able to know that somebody's nervous, or like even if their cadence, their voice, how fast they're talking, are they slow, is the anxiety high? And then maybe sometimes I'll just stop right there. Like if they're word vomiting, like these things to get it out there, I might just pause them, say, hey, let's get some water. Like, and then what I'll do is maybe I'll pull them aside and be like, what'd you do this weekend? Not even off camera, like just casual chat, and get them to be cool, and then go back on camera. And now they feel like that much more connected with me. Like if they get them to talk about their kids or something, like usually that lets them down. But you know, Dave, what I was going to go back to you is I also chop the hell out of my videos. So like for like raw interviews, I construct sentences that weren't even there. Sometimes like I'll take stuff.
Isn't
like,
that illegal?
And it's and then
I'm kidding.
Just work with what you got.
I guess. Yeah, I mean, like, so it's not 100% out of context. It's like basically taking like
exactly.
No. So it's like subtracting
I've,
ums and ahs, obviously, and then
I've
like
done that
taking
before
things.
too.
Yeah.
So it sounds like what you were talking about though is emotional intelligence that you have a lot of, and that's obviously not just important in making videos, and that's true in any line of work. And there's actually studies and statistics that show that people with high EQ or emotional intelligence are far more successful than those that don't have it. And from what I've understood, some people are born more innately with it, but I do think there probably is ways to develop that more too. And I don't know, and I think maybe even just the fact that you're aware of it, I don't know if you push into that more, or are there any ways that you have tried to develop that even more, or is it just kind of natural?
No, I think it's natural. I think I have like mentors, and some mentors that like don't even know they're my mentors. Is like I take little things and little bits and pieces of people, and I piece them together into like my own thing, I guess, if that makes sense, for like just general business interactions. And I think that's really important. Is I think us as entrepreneurs, we forget to like say, hey, we don't know it all. We need to seek guidance from other people if they know it or not, and just try to observe as much as you can from like other people's interactions, what works, what doesn't. I can read energy. So for instance, perfect example, and my mother's going to kill me about this. So my mother is doing this really cool startup business where it's such a huge need in our community. She's created an agency where she is working with first responders. Basically, any first responder that's had some sort of traumatic experience, or needs some sort of guidance, or is in a dark place, or needs family services, she is going to be facilitating that. And she's very good at what she does. And this startup is going to explode. Like, she's already got all these connections. She's identified a major need in our community. And so anyway, what's really funny is that I just went with a meeting with her to go meet with the local fire department, the chief of fire. And we go through our meeting, and you know, the subject matter of what she's doing is dark. It's sad, it's depressing, right? She's explaining herself, and she's just going down, 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 down. And I'm feeling the energy just getting sucked out of the room as she's describing what she's doing. And then I come back in, and I'm like, this is what we're doing for video. And it's like, I'm exciting. And I'm watching their levels go up, 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 up. And they're getting like more excited and like more energetic again. So I sat with her in the car and I said, you know, would you like some advice? And she's like, sure. You have to find a balance between what you do and the nature of it, and finding a way to not suck the energy out of the room, because you can see that they were just getting really like, oh, like, and then as soon as I brought back the other element in, and they were, and they go up. So it's that being able to read your audience too, is like when you're sitting with these executives and what matters to them, how can I find a way to excite them about this? And what is their return based off of the services that you're providing? And packaging all of that together in a way that is digestible, is exciting, and leaves them feeling good about when you're walking out the door that they're making a right decision about whatever your service may be.
Yeah, I like that. In your article, you talked about having the confidence. I think I'm just going to reference your article. It talks about knowing your competitive advantages, instilling confidence in your sales pitch, and at the very least, learning the language so you can communicate effectively with interdisciplinary figureheads. I love that. That puts everything in a nice, neat little package. But of course, going in, everybody's different. And knowing how to read a room is really important. And a lot of people might not know how to do that, but it's something you can at least be aware of and know that you need to be aware of and work on. Not just quit and say, well, I'm terrible at that, I'll just quit. Keep leaning in and keep reading people, keep watching the interactions.
Yeah, what's so funny too is I'll go into, obviously, like I know more or less the figureheads when I walk into like a boardroom, right? Like I'll know the COO, I'll know the CEO, I'll know the CFO, but they're always, not always, but there's sometimes that person who just isn't buying what you're selling, right? And you gotta find a way to include them into the conversation to get them to, because they're going to be the one, once you walk away, they're going to be the one that's going to be putting it down, saying to the person who's the decision maker, getting in their ear, I don't know if this person should be doing this. I don't know if this is the right direction. So you have to be very inclusive with everybody. So like if I were to go in and I know the COO is down, maybe HR is down, but the marketing director is just like not believing in video, right? I'll find ways to bring them into the conversation. And that has to do with that perception. What are they doing with their body? Are they making eye contact with you? Are they asking questions, positive questions? Are they asking negative questions? What are their gestures? Are they leaning back in the chair? Are their arms folded? Are they looking at some of your material? Are they on their cell phones? Who's that person in that room? And you got to like get them to it. They might not even be a decision maker, but at the end of the day, you want everybody on board and you have to be able to read that room. And I think that's so important.
Yeah. So Kevin, what got
and
you?
And then
go ahead.
And just that also, in terms of being able to speak that language, I've taken a pivot, like a paradigm shift on how I'm selling my services, is that I'm now trying to get into the analytics of everything and trying to get into campaign distribution. And I'm by no means an expert at this at all yet, but I'm a fast learner and I'm a voracious reader. So I've been spending a lot of time on this to be able to learn that language. And now I find if I'm talking to a marketing head or if I'm talking to a social media manager, this language that I've learned that I'm starting to pick up regarding campaign distribution, ad buys, SEO, meta tagging, all that stuff, day of time and purchase, all that stuff. I'm starting to integrate that into my conversations, and I'm seeing those people who might be naysayers actually perk up because I'm speaking their language. And now they're like, oh, you know what? Like, maybe video is something. Because what I do is it's a marriage between, the storytelling, the imagery, the quality, the call to action, the annotations, all of that on top of the campaign distribution, what channels we're going to put it out to, what our measurements are going to be, what are our reasonable conversions, what is our return on investment. All those things combined is the full package. And I think I was missing that for a long time. And now that I'm starting to kind of integrate that into conversations, I'm starting to see, for one, a better value of people. People value the product a little bit more. I'm not just handing off a product and being like, here you go, have at it. I'm now able to stand back and offer a service that might be of value to them, that they might not know how to use that video to its full potential. And I think that has a lot of worth in conversation, especially in your initial pitch.
Right. It probably just connects with them on their level too, right? You said you're speaking their language, so they're already connected with you in that way too. So that's cool. How and why did you get into video in the first place? What's the backstory?
I'm a super nerd,
okay.
And I don't play video games anymore, but I used to play video games a lot. And I fell in love, and it's so crazy that a remake is coming out, but I fell in love with this game called Final Fantasy VII. And I'm not sure are you familiar with that, Dave?
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah. So I fell in love with that game when I was a little kid, and I was like, wow, like this is amazing storytelling. And like, I just never, it let my imagination run wild. There's always something with people who get into film and video that there was something that sparked their imagination. And oddly enough, it wasn't actual video, it was video game.
Right.
So it just captured my imagination. And then I started to, when I was, I want to say I was 8 or 9, I started getting involved in chat room role playing and all that stuff, which is really super nerdy. And then I walked away with a really nerdy. And then I walked away with a really cool story. And I said to myself, I want to set out to make this story. And I still do to this day. And I don't know what form that's going to be in, if that's going to be in a book, or if that's going to be in an actual movie or some sort of combination of the two, which is kind of an interesting concept. Won't divulge too much into that, but I have like a really cool idea. That's where that element came from, combined with, you know, I grew up watching movies. I loved them. And I said to myself, well, I love to storytell. I love imagery. And then I started to learn how to do video. And I went off to college for direction and minored in writing, and then worked in Hollywood for a little while, and then came back home. And then from there, I ended up working in corporate, burnt myself out on that, and said to myself, you know, I can do this myself. I know how to do this. I don't need the bureaucracy of corporate holding me back. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into video and visual storytelling. I think also one other thing to add is I remember in high school having to do a video project, and it was sociology. And I think that was like the first movie I ever made, and I made it on like this like junky little Canon flip cam or something like that. And I remember the process being amazing, and it was like, wow, like I could do this for like the rest of my life, and I should maybe get paid for it or something like that. And I think that was a culmination of all those things. Yeah, does that kind of answer that?
Oh yeah, that's crazy. That's huge. And it's the passion to make video and to be a storyteller is a little bit different than starting your own business too. Like being an entrepreneur, sometimes those things don't always go hand in hand. So the fact that you've been able to build a business around your passion is pretty amazing too. And that it's been successful, I think, is really cool, because it's not always easy to do that. It's not a lot, like you said, a lot of people will go work in Hollywood for somebody else, or they work for a corporation or something, but to actually be able to do the things that you're doing on your own is huge, because there's a lot of moving parts that have nothing to do with storytelling or making videos.
Yeah. I can honestly, dude, I can tell you, man, like the time I spend more administrative time than I do of actual video shooting and editing.
Right.
I really do. And it's like, oh man, I want to get to a point where I can scale this.
Yep.
And actually have, you know, I have Gary when I need him, and I have my father Joe for the aerial services, but I don't want to say I'm a one-man band, because I do bring in, you know, day players as needed. But for all the administrative work, I'm a one-man band. And for all the lead gen, one-man band. The website, that took me months to build. So you're right. Marrying the creative with the interpersonal, with the administrative is like, I can see how people would not be able to do it and be able to survive and stand on their own 2 feet, because it just gets to an overwhelming point, especially with, you know, rejection.
Right.
Is like, it's just too much at sometimes. So I've been extremely thankful. And it's not all roses. You know, I've had tough years. Last year, super successful year. This year has actually been a really difficult year. And that's because of elements out of my own control, like leadership changes within companies that I was working with. So they've scaled back, stuff like that. So it's not all roses. And I think that you have to have that perseverance and that positive outlook to say, this is what I love. Know thyself is a huge thing. It's like, I've worked for companies, and I know that I can't go back and work in a desk job and do video. Like, I'm just not being utilized. I mean, I guess if I were to go work for like a big digital agency that's like traveling around the world every week, and I'm shooting and I'm out in the field, like, probably love that. But at the same time, I'm probably not going to have a lot of creative output to be able to do some of the things that I'm doing right now. So,
well, speaking of traveling, you have done some traveling when you're in the video work, have you not, like overseas or different countries and stuff? Is that right?
Yeah.
How's that? Like,
Yeah. So I love it. Like, that's where I don't feel like I could do it all the time. I would say that is where my heart is. I do love to travel, but so I worked for an international travel company for about a year. They did like guided travel, and that was the company that kind of like broke the camel's back for me. It was, in a way, it was a dream job, because what you do is it was guided travel, and I would go and experience the tour with the individuals and document it. And it was really cool. It was just the bureaucracy of it. Like, I would honestly say that when I wasn't traveling and I was in the office, which was the majority of the time, we'd probably only go on a couple of trips in that year's time. So I would say that, like, when I was in the office, I was probably working solid 1 to 2 days a week. The rest of the time, I'd just be kind of shuffling papers around and twiddling my thumbs,
like you're working.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I mean,
which
like,
is
that's
really
not
hard
how,
work.
That's not how I. Yeah, it's not. It's not how I want to be. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's just not valuing myself at that point. It's like, things corporate is a funny construct, a human construct, right? It's like, it was created mainly in the 60s, and really strong in the 80s, is corporate structure and this 9 to 5 job. And it's not efficient in the modern culture. And it's just the bureaucracy of it. Like, things get hung up because of one thing connects to the other. Like, I would honestly be waiting to create a video that I could probably create in 2 days. And I'd be waiting on a graphic designer to provide me elements. And he's backed up to Kingdom Come for the next, 2 weeks. And I can't move forward on my project because I'm hung up by him. And I'm like, I've got graphic chops. I could probably do what needs to be done and get this job complete, but I can't, because I'd be stepping on his toes, and then that makes him look bad. And you know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot of elements to corporate that just doesn't make sense. And that's why I just love what I'm doing now, is because I'm interfacing on an outside perspective with a fresh pair of eyes, and I can come in, I can complete the job, and I can walk away until the next project comes up and focus my attention elsewhere onto other partners. But travel, so much fun, Dave. It's like, I traveled to Spain, Portugal, England, Ireland, and France. And then also I did a job in Mexico City for another company too.
That sounds awesome.
We had one of our other guests. He has a company in Spain, Barcelona, Spain, and he was talking about the importance of traveling and getting out in the world and seeing other cultures. Do you feel like you have benefited from that, from being able to travel and then bring those experiences back into your work?
Yeah, the world is so much bigger than the four corners of where we live, right? I feel like just my college experience alone of going and living in Chicago for 4 years was an eye-opening experience. And there's so many people that are different in the Midwest as opposed to Southeastern Massachusetts, right?
Oh, yeah.
So when I go abroad, when I go abroad and I go overseas, it's just like this wealth of knowledge and culture and how things are being done in everyday life overseas is just really eye-opening, and it kind of keeps you in focus about how we live our own lives, and then incorporating that, what you learn, and bringing it back over here. I find, like, when I went to Portugal, it was really neat. People just had like a much more leisure, laid back approach, as opposed to, like, going to Boston people, like, can't even make eye contact with you. They're just running to go do whatever. They need to slow down, people need to just chill out and enjoy each other. And I think that we lose a little bit of that. And when you go abroad and you see how other people interact with one another, it just kind of reinforces that notion that we are all experience. That's, at the end of the day, the products, the services that we provide, none of that matters. It really doesn't. What we're here on this planet to do is to have experiences with one another. And if you walk through life with blinders on, you're not going to have a fulfilling life. So when you go into another culture and you're traveling abroad, like, take notice of, like, what's going on around you and how other people are interacting with you, because you might find it completely different than how you do in your own four corners of where you live.
Yeah, for sure. That's huge. And that's what he was saying. The guy that has an office in Spain, just actually his experiences in Spain and their culture and how connected they are. And it's more about relationships than getting the job done all the time. And he came back here and totally changed the model of his company to base it more on those connections and those experiences with others. So
that's so good, Kevin, to talk to you about. You're just reinforcing that story. It's kind of something I think that we all feel. It's like reading the room, right? You go in and you go, this corporate thing or the way we do things here, it doesn't feel right. Something's amiss.
Right. But that's how we've been doing it for the last however many years now. And so we're stuck in a mold that I think it's going to take more people like you and people thinking outside the box to create a new reality, a different reality that's
and I
not
think that's
so
what you're doing.
Focused on that. Yeah. It's
yeah.
cool.
The reality that we have is the reality that we make. Like I saw something that it was like an article about we all perceive reality differently. And this is getting really kind of like philosophical, but I think that if you put out a positive energy, hopefully you'd receive one in return. So this whole thing of like walking in and pitching on a service and just like trying to get paid is not a reality. You need to have that interpersonal relationship with the people that you're talking to and treat them like humans and not just source of income. And I think that, let me back up for a second. I'm going to give you an example. We just recently purchased our own house. Okay, like I said, and through the process, I have like an amazing real estate agent. She was great. She was a friend of mine. She walked in the door. I knew her for a while. I immediately said, done. Like she was a brand new agent. She was great. And she works for obviously a real estate agent. Not for nothing. Like they're a good agency, but I'm going into learning how to sell real estate. So I'm actually going for my real estate license. So I went into a class and the gentleman who taught the class is actually the owner of the brokerage. And I've met him like 3 times before I even sat down in his class. And each time I've met him, he never remembers me. And I say to him, I say, oh, I'm Kevin Luiz. We actually bought our house through you. And honestly, it's a blank stare on his face.
Wow.
Blank stare on his face, not like oh, really? Like, where'd you get it? Or like, cool, thank you so much for your business. None of that. Just a blank face. What do you want from me?
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, is this how you conduct business? You're so out of touch. I just handed you maybe like $20,000, $30,000 in commission, and you're going to not even acknowledge that? And that's the problem with our culture, is that we automatically think that we provide a service, therefore we put our hands out and we walk away. And that's not how business should be conducted. You need to humble yourself and you need to say, thank you. Thank you for choosing me, because there's so many options out there that people, and if you walk through life with that attitude or this chip on the shoulder of like, you owe me or the world owes me, and therefore I'm not going to be appreciative of that fact, is a really sad day for our culture. I really do think that, and people aren't going to choose to do business with you. And if they do, they only do it because it's by default, So that's my whole spiel with that. I don't know entirely where I was going, but I think that you just need to, again, it's reinforcing that notion of connecting with people.
Yeah.
And that's really the name of the game of being successful, is connecting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much for your time. I love your work. Is fantastic. You're extremely talented, and we're
Thank you.
Thankful that you were on the show with us today. So how can people get a hold of you?
Sure. They can go to our website, which is capionstudio.com, which is CAPION studio.com, or they can reach out to me personally, which is info@capionstudio.com.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Hey, have a good day, all right?
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
Explore, dream, discover. That's what we're all about here, sharing people's stories and engaging with each other. Well, we hope you found this conversation helpful and encouraging. We'd love to keep in touch. We just started a Facebook group where you can connect on a more personal level. It's called the Square One Lounge. You can find it by going to our website, squareoneshow.com, and at the top, just click on Lounge. Thanks to our editor, Paul McCosco. And until next time, this is David and Jessica Lewis. Enjoy your week.